Hello and welcome to episode 94 of Third and Wrong, our final episode of 2020. I'm your co-host, Stephen Bullen, and with me as always is Zach and Ozzy. And for those watching on YouTube, you'll notice that there's a clown where Austin is supposed to be. That's terrifying. I have nothing for that. Ozzy, care to join us and let us know what is behind the clown?
Well, I just had to own it. I had a couple horrendous picks over the last couple weeks. One might say that I was putting on the old clown makeup when I chose the Vikings to beat the Saints, or when I chose the Broncos to beat the Bills. Both were not even close. So that was a nice representation of what I've been the last couple weeks. Just a giant clown over here.
No better way to end 2020 than full self-esteem as you have going on there, Ozzy. Zach, I see you're wearing a brown sweater. Did you get that for Christmas?
Hey, I did get this for Christmas. I just wanted to wear it to let everyone know that no, I don't think the Browns are shit because they lost to the Jets, but I'm still here. Hey, Ozzy, we're still here right now, as Tom Brady would say, and big week coming up.
Yeah, it should be fun. Well, before we get to week 17, fellas, let's recap week 16. And we're going to do that through our typical 2-minute drill. Ozzy, I'm going to get the cadence going. You got the timer ready?
Yeah.
All right, third and wrong. We're on our own 20. 2 minutes left. 2 timeouts. Let's rock and roll. Down, set, hot. All right, Alvin Kamara scores 6 more times than I did in college as the Saints roll to victory 52-33. The Buccaneers take it to Detroit 47-7 as Tom Brady looks like vintage Tom. Who knows? The 49ers win 20-12 over Arizona, shocking and dashing their playoff hopes. The Dolphins squeak one by against the Las Vegas Raiders 26-25. Is John Gruden on the hot seat? And the Broncos fall to the Chargers 19-16 as Drew Lock's second year comes to a disappointing end.
The Browns' playoff hopes take a tumble as the Jets beat them 23-16. Browns still in it, but need a must win in week 17. The Ravens take care of business and against the Giants. I don't know what else to say here. 27-13. The Bengals surprise the Texans as Brandon Allen puts up 37 on the Texans, 37-31. The Bears demolish the Trevor Lawrence future-led Jaguars 41-17. Words are hard. Chiefs squeak by the Falcons 17-14 in a snore fest of a game. And the Colts, they choke away a 24-7 lead, and they lose 28-24 against the Steelers.
Haas King equals Haas goodbye. Beat up football team couldn't beat the competitive Panthers at home, 20-13 Panthers. Steve was very happy with Jared Goff's performance against the Seahawks. Seattle takes the division 20-9 Seahawks. The Cowboys stay in the playoff chase with the big W against the struggling Eagles. With Dog Penis, the Red Rocket Andy Dalton, performing at a high level, are the Cowboys ready to steal the NFC East? 37-17 Cowboys. Rodgers has a huge game against the AFC powerhouse Tennessee Titans. Did he do enough to seal the deal for MVP? It's hard to argue with that stat line, 40-14 Packers. There's a new king in the AFC East. Cam and company had Bill throwing a phone in anger with their stellar performance, 38-9 Bills.
We went over time there. That was like the Raiders clock management. We went over, but Raiders didn't use enough time.
How much?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, how much?
It was like the timer just went off right as Zach was kind of in the middle of the Bills and the Patriots line. So I kind of missed some of your Cam Newton slander as I was focused on the timer. But
I'm almost rooting for the Cowboys and Andy Dalton to make a Super Bowl run just so Zach has to come on this podcast and say dog penis multiple more times just to see what happens, you know.
Steve,
the Cowboys are.
Oh, go ahead, Ozzy.
I was going to say the Cowboys are an enigma. Like, how are they a playoff team right now when they're just left for dead after Dak was out and then Andy Dalton was out? It's like, we didn't
even stick a fork in them. Like there was nothing to stick a fork in. They were just a carcass, and then all of a sudden they were just been revived by the grace of God, and Andy Dalton, the dog penis.
Cue the Undertaker memes.
Dog penis. That's a thing.
It
When
is.
whoever told me that was his nickname in college, I couldn't believe it.
The
I was
Red
like,
Rocket.
did everyone let this go by without like anyone saying anything?
Like, hey, well, actually, that actually means, and he's like, no, don't spoil it. It's me. It's Andy Dalton.
I think even like in Family Guy, they make a joke about it. I don't know. But yeah.
This Dallas team, though, man, like when we came in to like our preview show, I said I had them going 11-5 with Dak, and I was like, I thought they had a top 5 roster in the NFL, like between how they beefed up the receiving core. I thought their O-line was passable, and I believed in the defensive moves they made in at the time. I mean, the O-line ended up being worse than I thought, and the defense was Swiss cheese for a majority of the year. And then when Dalton got hurt and no one really defended him in that game, I thought, okay, this team doesn't even have heart to play with. Mike McCarthy looks lost out there. And then I kind of just stopped following them. I'm like, well, this team's not really interesting. And then all of a sudden you blink and it's like, well, if they win and the football team loses Sunday Night Football against the Eagles, this team's going to be hosting Tom Brady and the Buccaneers on a wild card weekend. So it's just really, I think that's how the matchup would play anyways. It's just really weird to think about how far this team has come. And you know what, credit to Andy Dalton, man, because I think it's a really cool career revitalization he's had. Looks like CeeDee Lamb had a big game against the Eagles. So that was encouraging to see if you're a Cowboys fan. So, I mean, at this point, try to make the playoffs. I mean, if you just miss out, you're not going to get much of a pick anyways, it looks like. So might as well go for it.
I've been so impressed with the Cowboys actually as of late, and they've been playing like good on both ends. McCarthy, I think Steve, you're saying like CeeDee Lamb. I've been really impressed with CeeDee Lamb all around this year, but I want to just say, because me saying dog penis for Andy Dalton does not mean I dislike him. I disliked him when he was with Cincinnati, obviously, because he was a Bengal, but I did have a respect for him. And I do like how he's kind of revitalizing at the end of the season. He wasn't performing well at the start, but yeah, that O-line's been decimated. And now it seems like things are just starting to come together.
And I mean, what better time? I mean, might have Taylor Hinkie starting for Washington Sunday Night Football. And you have to beat this Giants team that's been on a tailspin since their marquee victory against Seattle a couple of weeks ago. Since then, they've lost to the Browns and they've lost to the Cardinals, I believe. And who did they just lose to this past week? It was just said to the Ravens. So, I mean, Colt McCoy or Daniel Jones, they haven't been able to right the ship when the division was right there for their taking. But we could be talking about Dallas in a potential playoff preview show as early as next week. So we'll be interested to see how that comes. So speaking of next week, fellas, 2020 will be coming to a conclusion this week. By the time this episode's out, it'll probably be December 31st. And as we all know, 2020 has been a hell of a ride, to say the least, for everyone in the world. I mean, I don't think everyone's been touched by the hellscape that has been 2020. I mean, you have if this was a CNN or Fox News podcast, we could talk about everything from the coronavirus to Kobe Bryant's death to the fires in Australia to multiple other celebrities passing away. But right now we're going to be recapping the top 5 football storylines from 2020. And guys, when we were kind of combining these in our group chat, I couldn't believe like how long 2020 has felt. I mean, jumping into number 5 here, it's the Chiefs winning Super Bowl 54. And that was when we were hosting like our first pretty significant big event. Obviously, we had the CFL tailgate in 2019, but this was like our Super Bowl party at Skinny's. COVID at the time was just a threat overseas, which it probably wasn't, but I wasn't paying attention. We were in Medicine Hat and we had Skinny's rocking with the big matchup between the Chiefs and the 49ers. And what a game that was. I just wanted to reminisce on that because that was really cool. And I hope to do that again soon sometime. But kind of where I want to go with this one, guys, is I think the Chiefs winning this Super Bowl set the table for their decade of dominance to come. And what we thought, we did a show on this in the off season. And I want to go back to you guys now that they're sitting at 14-1. Are you sticking with your original predictions for how many Super Bowls we figured they would get in the decade? I'm going to go to you first, Zach, because you had them winning 2 this decade. I believe that's 2 more than what they already won, or does that mean just 1 more this decade on top of the one they just won?
At that time, I was saying it was 2 more additional.
Okay.
They were going to win. So in total 3.
Right.
Man, I'm sticking with it, Steve. I really believe, you look at it, and I liked how Ozzy did defend it prior about the one Super Bowl maybe that they would win. However, I just think with the team that they have around them, they got to win one more. I really believe that they can go and win one more. Patrick Mahomes is, even in his down play that, this hasn't been a great month for them. I think we can all agree. They are still only have one loss on the whole season this year, and they haven't been playing good football over that time, but they're still winning. This team is absolutely terrifying. They win. Nick Wright says it best. These are like the Warriors of 2018 when they had Kevin Durant and everything was clicking, and it just seemed like a championship was, sitting right in front of them. And I feel like this is their time to blow it all away. If they're going to lose, it's going to be their fault, them not showing up and not doing what they need to do. There's too much talent on that team. That defense has, at times it's really shown what level it can play at. And if it can play at a high level in the playoffs, that team's going to be hard to beat. Looking forward, Patrick Mahomes is too damn talented to not win another one. Going down the line off of his back there at some point, I think he's too great not to get another one later on as he matures and gets even better than he is now. So,
all right, Ozzy, we'll go to you. You had the most pessimistic outlook, I believe. And I'm trying to put the context of what that preview show was, because when I said 3 for the decade, I don't think I meant 3 additional to the one they won in 2020. I think that meant 2 more for the decade. I could be wrong, but you had them winning at the most 1 more, or thinking that would have been the only Super Bowl, this past one, that they would have won. What's your outlook for this team on the decade? Has it changed? Has this season changed your mind, or not enough to sway your original take?
Yeah. So actually, for me, I forget, did you just say you had me saying they would win 1 additional or 1 total?
Let me go back to the Instagram.
Because what I meant was 1 additional. Anyways.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just say that. So 1 additional. So 2 in the decade. And I'm going to stand by that, because they do have all the weapons right now. But one thing that we need to pay attention to, and this was my concern when I first made this take, was the cap space situation. I think next year they actually have negative cap, or they're going to have negative cap until they make some moves, and they're not going to be able to restructure their way out of every single deal to keep every single player. So I don't think that this is going to be something that is sustainable long term. I think that they did sell out to win their first Super Bowl in 50 years. And I think that they have the talent on their roster right now to maybe win one this year. I'm not confident that they do this year, but I think that they do with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. You still have that chance to, you will always have that chance to kind of compete. I think it's a similar thing to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, in that they'll always be perennial contenders. It's just a matter of the team that they can field around them, especially with the cap being less next year. I think that's really going to hinder the Chiefs for the next couple of years after this year. And another point that I wanted to make too is that the competition level in the AFC alone is getting fierce. Like, we're seeing the Bills, who just decimated the Patriots. So this is really fresh, 38-9. Those Bills, they have looked really feisty the last couple of weeks, and they're looking like they can go toe to toe with anybody. And I would put the Chiefs absolutely in that category, that they could go into Kansas City and beat them. So just with the way that they're playing, and not just one team, there's always going to be the Colts have a good foundation. The Titans have a recipe that could, if they can keep that consistency. Last year, they showed that they could have almost beat the Chiefs. They just couldn't sustain that offense throughout the game. So there is some serious competition here that I think that the Chiefs are going to struggle against. And all of that coupled with, because there's some really good rebuilt teams. I didn't even mention the Dolphins, but they're a whole other reason. So that's my point. But that with the cap situation, I'm standing by my original take from earlier this year.
And my mistake, fellas, for throwing a screw into it. So they can technically won the 2019 Super Bowl last year. So our question was poised. You said they'd win 1 additional one. Zach said 2 more this next decade, and I was the most optimistic outlook on this team. I said 3 more. I'm sticking with it, man. This team, even with the cap space troubles, I think with Patrick Mahomes locked in, we'll get to his deal later, and Andy Reid there, I think they could have at the minimum, a Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson streak of success, which has been multiple playoff appearances. And I think they're going to blow that out of the water. Like Seattle's been stuck in the divisional round since 2014, as far as their ceiling since dismantling the LOB. I think Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes could almost rival the Belichick-Brady kind of marriage that was so successful in New England for the better part of 2 decades. So I'm going to stick to my 3 additional Super Bowls on top of the 2019 one from the decade of 2020 to 2029. Zach?
I also think like one thing with the cap, I think there is going to be some trouble, and I do agree with you, Ozzy. I'm happy you brought that up. But the Chiefs also have a pretty good track record for drafting. And like if we looked at it going into this year too, like everyone was sold on like that defense, that it wasn't going to be good at all this year. But Steve, you made a good point about the coaching and Andy Reid and that marriage. I think Andy Reid is just like developed like a fine wine, or what is the
fine wine, I'm trying to say. Not cheese wine.
Yeah, that's right. So like he was always really good, but now with the quarterback of his dreams, he's gotten even better and more creative, which you don't see very often. And now he's at his best, and that could be a scary thing for a lot of AFC teams, like the Browns, for example, too. I had to throw that in there. Ozzy didn't say their names. So, but
sorry.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think what I was getting at was the draft. They do draft well in Kansas City. That's one thing they've always been known for, even back when Dorsey was there and then after that. And I think that's going to help with that cap issue down the road. But I do think there is going to be a bit of an issue coming forward here as the cap isn't increasing, or we're looking at, isn't there like 3 years of it going to be stagnant, or 2 years?
Be spread out. Yeah.
Right. So that might be a problem, but yeah, I think it's just a scary dynamic they have.
That's a good point on Reid. I mean, he came from the Mike Holmgren coaching tree, which is very like traditional West Coast offense. And then he had McNabb all those years in Philadelphia. And then I never would have thought, like, you saw it a little bit with how he played with like Mike Vick early in the decade. And so you kind of saw some hints of like what Reid was capable of. And then, yeah, he gets Patrick Mahomes and it just the floodgates open. So that'll be something to keep an eye on over the next decade. So our number 4 storyline for 2020 is Tom Brady signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I feel like this got pretty big coverage, but it just it feels like we're so used to it now. And I think it just kind of got buried in the shuffle that has been the news cycle of 2020. But I mean, this was pretty big, guys. You had a quarterback of Tom Brady's stature leaving his team after 20 years. This isn't, I probably said it was, but it isn't Michael Jordan going to the Wizards. Tom Brady's still been playing very good football leading up to his departure in New England. And so I guess the question I want to pose for this storyline, guys, is, has it played out how we thought it was going to? Were we right or wrong on our initial take? And I pulled up our predictions for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Zach was probably the closest. He had the Bucs going 10-6 and finishing second in the NFC South. Ozzy and I both had them going 11-5 and clinching the division this year. Now, as far as Tom's play personally, Zach's obviously been very hard on him and some 2-minute drills after some poor games. But I think, you take the highs and the lows and you look at what his season that he's had so far, and you pretty much get what you expected. I was very questionable about the marriage of Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, but I think this has been about as successful as you can ask it to be at this point. I'm not sure if maybe a division title is realistic looking back on it now. I was just a little more pessimistic on the Saints than probably it was realistic to be. But if I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, I'm pretty ecstatic with as to how this has played out. It has been perfect. I mean, I don't think it was ever in the cards to go 14-2 or 13-3, but you're not 7-9 and missing the playoffs because Jameis threw 34 picks this year. So I think that's a bonus. We're going to go to the number 1 Tom Brady fan in this podcast, Zach Foff. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to Ozzy. When he left New England, obviously, I know you were still rooting for him. How has this played out in your mind? And I'll toss one that isn't in the doc here. Do you think it would have played out better if he stayed in New England, or are you happy he's succeeding in Tampa Bay?
There's no way it would have worked out better if he was in New England with the weapons that we have, man. He's got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin when he's healthy, Antonio Brown, etc. The list goes on. Gronk.
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, we might have lost Ozzy.
Oh no.
So thing on. And we're live. Okay, sorry for the technical difficulties. Got to upgrade the Wi-Fi. Anyway, so the Patriots have no weapons, and Tom Brady going to the Bucs where they have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk, etc. I think that was a fantastic move on his part, and it was kind of like, it kind of gave people like dream team vibes from the Eagles, and that was in 2010, wasn't it?
2011.
2011. So at the start of the decade. So then, like, I think people were kind of aware of that situation. We're like, it's too good to be true. And so we're kind of expecting maybe a fall off of epic proportions for what this Bucs team could be capable of. And we haven't seen that totally yet. Like, we haven't seen a team that's dominant like the Chiefs, but we've seen a team that can obviously go out and dominate at times. So I think that, like, they're kind of a wild card. I'll use that phrase. As to which Tampa Bay team is going to show up. Is the defense going to show up? Is it not? Is the offense going to show up? Is it not? So that's really concerning. But the fact that Tampa Bay, if you're a Tampa Bay fan, and you get to see Tom Brady put up over 4,000 yards in his first year at age 43 and 36 touchdowns, like, you're laughing. You made the playoffs too. So this is, I don't think it could have gone any better. And I'm going to say that because I think that there was a lot of expectations that it wasn't going to go good at all.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the number one Tom Brady critic. And Zach, I'll preface this by saying Ozzy and I in our preseason predictions both had Tampa Bay going to the conference finals before bowing out. You had them losing in the wild card round. How would you grade Tom Brady's season in Tampa? You know, you seem to be the most spot on right now, and depending on what their first round matchup could be, they could be a wild card round exit. Maybe division rounds more likely if they end up playing the NFC East team. But how are you looking at his first season in Tampa?
It's been, for Tom Brady, it's been inconsistent, but he brings a stability that they were missing and they needed. That is dream team all the way, Ozzy. I 100% agree with you. That offense is loaded to the nuts. It is absolutely insane. When you look at that on paper, that's like some crazy Madden team that you put together. And it's had its ups and downs, as something like this would, though. Think about it that way. Like, we didn't have preseason. We didn't have these guys molding together to have, a really consistent product on the field. However, I do want to thank, and you guys have probably seen this, and why I do think that the 10-6, I think they'll probably go 11-5 here now, but be that wild card spot that we were chatting about. I do think we could see a first round exit, and the Bucs, not only Tom Brady, but the Bucs as a whole do not play well against good competition. Other than Green Bay, they destroyed Green Bay. But thank you to First Things First, FS1 there. They put a really good picture up of Tom Brady's performances against teams in the league, and against non-playoff teams, he's 9-0. He is absolutely dominant. You could argue the best player in the league, best quarterback in the league, almost 70% completion, 8.3 yards per pass, 26 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, almost 118 rating. That is unreal. And 9 wins. You can't argue that. The guy's a winner. Now, when you see him playing against playoff teams, all of his losses have come there. He's won 1 game, has 5 losses, 60% completion, 6.2 yards, 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and a 76.5 rating. I know it doesn't all come down to the rating. It does show over that period of time how he has played against that top competition. I am scared if I was a Tampa Bay fan or a Brady fan, what's going to happen when he plays the higher competition. A lot of Brady fans are going to come at me and be like, yeah, he just ups his game. but he hasn't upped his game yet. We need to see that. We need to see that consistency against the good defenses. We've also, like, when we look at his stats though too, everyone's looking at this as, oh, it was a successful season, but we can't also forget all the bad things that happened too. I've never seen Tom Brady throw so many weird, stupid interceptions in one game before, and he did it a few times. I mean, he's 43 years old and he's still playing at a high level. I will give him that. And I think where we're sitting is kind of where expectation is for them. If they go anywhere past, like, to the divisional round or past that, I think you're overachieving for the first year in Tampa Bay with Tom Brady. But they are fitting kind of right where I had felt they would go.
That's really well said, Zach. I think you put a nice bow on that one, because with Tampa, I just feel like if I see them playing in the conference finals, I'm going to be like, wow, like this. I've never, we say like it's been a year first for Tom. I've never seen him lose a game 40-3 before either. I think that was the score in the New Orleans Saints game, right? It's just been things like that where you're like, wow, like that's crazy. You're not used to seeing him like totally dejected like that after being blown out. So it's been a year first for that. But I mean, I also didn't expect him to throw more than 30 touchdowns. And as Ozzy said, I think he has 36 on the year. So it's definitely been, I think, it's kind of leveled out to right where everyone with a reasonable take thought it would be. I mean, for anyone who thought they'd be winning more than 12 games, I think was kind of a pipe dream, just considering the competition in the conference and the division. So we'll leave that one there. The number 3 top 5 storyline for 2020 that we thought of was the CFL's lost season. This one was tough because coming into this, we were all pretty excited just as far as how the storylines were progressing. I was really excited to see Fajardo in his sophomore campaign as a full starter anyways, take over Saskatchewan. I was excited to see if Winnipeg made the right decision sticking with Collaros as opposed to Matt Nichols. We got to chat with Matt Nichols and how that was going to shake out with him and McLeod Bethel Thompson battling out in Toronto, if they would be able to revitalize that franchise, if Ryan Dinwiddie as head coach would be like a Sean McVay-esque or a Kyle Shanahan-esque with the young influence and everything. Pinball Clemens running that franchise. Nick Arbuckle, the young quarterback, taking over in the nation's capital with Paul LaPolice, who was the offensive coordinator with Winnipeg, who just won the Grey Cup. Hamilton trying to avenge their 15-win season and then losing it all in the Grey Cup. I mean, Edmonton getting a new name and Trevor Harris trying to rebound. Calgary trying to maintain that consistency that Kamar Jordan and Keon Raymond speak so highly of. I mean, Mike Riley, man, with one of the most disappointing years in 2019, was supposed to come back in 2020 and stick it to all of us. And we got nothing because COVID and the lack of planning from the CFL. We've beat this up at length. So I don't want to just sit here and rail against Randy Ambrosie or anyone, because as even Jim Mullen said, president of Football Canada, you can't really put it squarely on his shoulders. So, but it is a top storyline because we missed out on an entire league year. Like, imagine if the NFL didn't happen. I mean, and the CFL is just as important, if not more important, to a lot of Canadians. So I guess as far as a topic for this one, guys, long-term, do you guys believe the CFL can make a recovery? We've seen a lot of encouraging signs. Teams are re-signing players, high-end quarterbacks. Bo Levi, Mike Riley, Cody Fajardo have all restructured their contracts. You're seeing that across the board. Players are re-signing. So that big list of free agents that startled Aussie slowly starting to come down a little bit, which is good to see. I think Vernon Adams also restructured his deal as well. Mm-hmm. We're also trying to get on the podcast right now. His agent isn't getting back to us, so that's disappointing. I figured might as well call him out, right?
Get back to us. If you don't answer the follow-up email, then you're just being a schmucklehead. Yeah,
then we're under your bed at that point. So we ask twice, then we stop asking after the second.
The clown's coming under your bed.
A threat to anyone who doesn't come on the pod. So, guys, I'm cautiously optimistic about the long-term look of this league. The one thing that is bothering me is when the CFL announced that they wouldn't be having a season in 2020, they're talking about different ways they want to get new revenue streams coming into the league. And I just don't think there's been any announcements on that. We haven't heard of any streaming service. We haven't heard of, whether they're going to try to get gambling involved or something to bring money in, fantasy sports. Like, we haven't heard of anything to try to get people our age and younger involved in the game. So I'm just disappointed that right now it seems like they're crossing their fingers and hoping the vaccine and the progress of this kind of cures all. I'm really nervous that we still could be looking at a 9-game season or a bubble concept at some point come summer, just depending on where everything's at. So it's hot and cold because I'm happy to see activity and football news actually come out of the league, but I'm also disappointed we didn't hear more during that stagnated period, aside from that conference and summit they had that Jim Mullen speaks so highly of about the grassroots. But that seems more like a long-term outlook as far as like immediately injecting the money with cash. We didn't really hear of anything like that, but I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm hoping 2021 can pick up where those storylines left off in 2019. So go to you, Ozzy, if you have anything to add on that.
Yeah, I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but I think I said it to you, Steve. I was talking to somebody about this, but I was kind of worried about the how the league would rebound from this with such a big hit to the finances and having to rely on possibly government support to even just have a year, and they weren't even able to do that. So like, there's a lot of shuffling that is going to be going on in the organizations from a payroll standpoint and from a organizational structure standpoint, and just getting players in, like, where's the cash coming from? And like you said, the streaming service seems to be the big kind of like this holy grail of an outlet in terms of getting money in. But even then, there's no guarantees. The Canadian population's 1/10 of the US population. And like, so is it going to be as sustainable as something like NFL Game Pass, for example? I don't know if I don't know if the league is big enough yet. And I don't know if they would be able to implement something that would be both cost effective for the viewer and also generate enough revenue for the league long term. So there's a lot of things that obviously the league needs to figure out in a very short period of time. So I appreciate that it does take time, but I think cautiously optimistic is the perfect phrase to go with, because I want to believe that they're putting in these steps and it's not just going to be a streaming service, but it's going to be a plethora of factors that they're going to have to incorporate. I think that they do obviously have the right leadership to be doing this, with Jim Mullen, Andy Ambrosi, and all these other stakeholders, even from the grassroots level, to kind of develop a fan base from like the younger ages and families at those ages to grow the game in general. And I think that's where the longevity of the league is going to come back. I don't, at this rate, like, to say we could go for another 100 years, that would be very, very tough to go with, because I think that the impact that COVID had on this league that's cash short, as we found out from the negative financial statements from that came out earlier this year, I think that's very concerning in that sense. So I don't know how long how this rebounds, but cautiously optimistic after that very grim sentiment.
Fair enough. Zach, your thoughts on the CFL going forward into the new year?
Yeah, I'm a very positive guy with this. I think I loved everything you guys said. I don't want to say too much more, as I don't have much more to add on what you guys said. I just know that this league has grown from, like Ozzy was saying, it's 100 years old. But when we look back at like the 90s, and I think it went into the early 2000s, when like they expanded and like it seemed a little bit not as well managed. Everything seems a little bit more structured now, and there is that business structure to it. Yes, I agree, Steve. I think they should attack different avenues. It's going to be hard to do with what Ozzy was saying as well, but I can find a middle ground there, I think, and say that I am optimistic, because I do feel like the CFL is a more structured vehicle for football now. And I think for the height of stardom and everything that's coming forward with them right now, they have a lot to build on for attracting new fans and such. So I'm going to stay optimistic. I'm going to be ready to watch my Toronto Argonauts go at it and see what happens there. But I think there's a way of sitting on both ends here and kind of looking at it.
Absolutely. And it's kind of weird. I made a tweet about this today, and it's resonated with quite a few people. I'm getting quite a few replies well, it's good for me anyways, as far as like engagement. I usually get one like on a tweet, but I tweeted out, with Alex Singleton emerging in Philly and Chris Streveler potentially starting a week 17 playoff implicated game in Arizona, and Chase Claypool lighting it up in Pittsburgh. And then Nick Kowalski added on Deontay Spencer and Brandon Zylstra finding the end zone, former CFL players. It just seems like this year's been like a really positive year with no CFL as for Canadian athletes and former CFL players, because obviously not all the players I mentioned are Canadian, but they have played in the CFL. So it's really cool to see that. And I think it's getting more positive exposure. People aren't just looking at the CFL as some kind of farm league or anything. Like real talent comes out of there, and that's evident. And then we, based on the interviews we've had, there's work being done at the grassroots level. So I think there's a lot of positive vibes going around here. But as far as like an actual business structure, I'd just like to see more, I guess, not confidentiality, the opposite of that, more forwardness with the CFL. Transparency. Thank you. With that stuff when it comes to the CFL, but maybe they're still working away at it and they can't release anything right now because it wouldn't be responsible to do that. But anyways, that was the number 3 top 5 football storyline for 2020 was losing the CFL. That hurt a lot of Canadians. It hurt us, especially because we thrive off that. So anyways, number 2 football storyline of 2020, the blockbuster NFL trade. We had Jamal Adams being traded from the New York Jets to the Seattle Seahawks for 2 first-round picks and Bradley McDougald. We had DeAndre Hopkins being traded from the Houston Texans to the Arizona Cardinals for a second-round pick and David Johnson. I'm not sure what else there was on top of that, but I wanted to I wanted to center around these 2 guys, and apologies if I'm missing another massive one, but which players had the bigger impact on their team this season? Jamal Adams with Seattle or Hopkins in Arizona? We'll go to you first, Ozzy, because I know you've been a little harsh on Jamal Adams and the price Seattle paid to get him.
Well, I'll say this to your face, Steve. I was kind of trolling when I was mentioned, when I had tweeted or I commented, whatever it was on Twitter. That was a while ago now. But I think that the one that dominates for me is just the Hopkins to Arizona. And in terms of I haven't looked at the impact in terms of Jamal Adams on the Seahawks. And I know for the first half of the year when he was injured for a little bit, but before that he wasn't making much of an impact. But DeAndre Hopkins has that's, if not still the top offense in the league, it's like top 3. And it shows that offense basically runs through DeAndre Hopkins, which is almost to a fault. And in fact, I would argue that it is to a fault because Kyler Murray becomes a little too reliant on just throwing it up and hoping D-Hop can come down with it. But that's why they brought him in. They brought him in at such a low price tag for what he should be getting. And it still doesn't make any sense to me. I'd love to bash Bill O'Brien again for that trade because it's so terrible. But the Arizona Cardinals, Larry Fitzgerald, as good as he played last year, they could not go another year making him the focal point. And having DeAndre Hopkins as your number 1 and then Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk, among others, to kind of go down the depth chart there, it has really proven to be a solid offense. And in fact, it really has. It's, like I said, top 3. And so that's the one that I'm going to go with. I'm not going to say that Jamal Adams, obviously he's had a massive impact. At one point, I think he was leading the league in sacks, or at least safeties. He had something. I was going to get to that. He broke the defensive back record for sacks in a year, and he's since broke it again. He has 9.5 sacks. So every time he gets a sack, he's breaking his own record now. So yeah, he's obviously making his mark felt. But just for me, I think with what the Cardinals needed, if they didn't make a move on a big receiver, Larry Fitzgerald is not going to be able to carry that team. And for that reason, that's why I'm saying D-Hop had a bigger impact.
That's fair. And just for context, Hopkins, 111 receptions, 1,372 yards and 6 touchdowns. So he's definitely made his mark, and he was obviously caught the Hail Murray against the Buffalo Bills, which is kind of a signature moment. I'm biased, but I think as far as Seattle goes, Adams has made such an impact, and it's not going to get the recognition it deserves just because of the shit show that Seattle's defense was to start the season. And that had less to do with him as his talent as it had to do with how they were all communicating, and just seeing how this defense has really started to come together and gel and click over the last, I would say, 5 or 6 games. It's been really encouraging. And now we're starting to see the full potential of Jamal Adams and how he fits in here. And I think beyond his play and what he's capable of rushing the passer or even in coverage, and he dropped a pick against LA, which was disappointing, but I think he's playing with a broken finger, a couple broken fingers, I heard. If you want to chalk that up as an excuse, but Seattle for years since the departure of Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, and Cam Chancellor have lacked that alpha. And Bobby, like, don't get me wrong, Bobby Wagner's a future Hall of Famer, but he's not that I'm going to yell in your face and get in your face. Jamal Adams finally brings that dog mentality back to this defense where it's like, we're going to punch you in the face first. And now what are you going to do about it? Whereas before it was kind of Seattle would get punched first and then try to respond. And I mean, that hasn't been a winning formula. I mean, since 2018, that defense just hasn't had that same level of intimidation as it did during the heart of the LOB era. And this is far and away from ever being the LOB, but I think Adams culturally has at least helped revive that spirit in the secondary. And I think that going forward is going to be big. Now we just got to extend them. But not to discount Hopkins, you made some great points there, Ozzy, on his impact, and he's going to be huge for Kyler Murray's growth going forward. But I think culturally, Adams has just made such an impact. I think it just took a little too long for it to get the credit that maybe we'll give on this podcast or the mainstream media will give credit to. But I think he's been a big part in revitalizing the spirit of that Seahawks defense. So we'll go to Zach for the tiebreak.
Yeah, I was going to more allude to the sense that I think the DeAndre Hopkins trade, as big as the Jamal Adams Adams trade was, I'm not like discrediting that it wasn't like a huge trade. I'm just saying the DeAndre Hopkins, first of all, was an ass raping against the Texans. I'll say that, but it was also the flashier move than what we would describe the Jamal Adams trade. Don't mind you, I'm saying that with context, as it still was a pretty flashy trade, big trade. Jamal Adams was very well respected. But a little bit of that flash also comes with the fact that DeAndre Hopkins is a wide receiver, arguably the best wide receiver in an offensive league, where he's catching these fancy passes and telling everyone he's the best wide receiver in the game and things like that. And Jamal Adams is more what you alluded to, Steve, was the punch you in the face, tough, I'm going to go get this done. In the long run, I think Jamal Adams plays a position that's harder to replace in the NFL at a high level. And as he's progressed now, he's getting so much better. 9.5 sacks in a season for a safety? Are you kidding me? That's amazing. He's breaking records already. And that's his first season with an injury at the start and a struggling defense to begin with. Long term, I think this actually favors Seattle because they needed that culture shift, as Steve said. But for flashiness, excitement, and all that, you guys know I'm not a huge Arizona fan, but I'm not going to discredit what he's done either. He's looked really good. He caught a really beautiful pass in the end zone to win against the Bills and made Kyler Murray look a lot better than he is. So he's done well. And I'm actually going to favor for the long-term Jamal Adams here. Not discrediting. I really like DeAndre Hopkins as a wide receiver. He's freaking sweet and really good. But the whole system changing of what Seattle needed and what they are, I think was huge to get Jamal there. And the underlining, DeAndre Hopkins was the flash that was needed in Arizona.
It was interesting to watch you kind of talk yourself from DeAndre Hopkins being the top one to Jamal Adams all in a 3-minute span, Zach.
I talked what?
It seemed like you talked yourself from DeAndre Hopkins to Jamal Adams in that time span. It sounded like you're going one way and then you called an audible.
I knew I had to explain prior to saying that. I needed to explain that the trade was still an ass raping by the Texans, but yes, I could see.
Steve, I think the question should have been which trade had the biggest impact? Is it DeAndre Hopkins to Arizona or Carlos Dunlap to the Seahawks?
Yeah, that's been he's got a 7th rounder and he's there. We have to extend him too, so I'm a little worried about this offseason, but I really hope we don't let those guys walk as we did Jadeveon Clowney, who I don't know, guys, maybe I just don't follow enough Tennessee Titans Twitter pages, but I feel like he's been pretty radio silent as far as that defense goes. Has he been hurt?
He's on IR now, so he's he's done for the year, yeah.
And I'm not happy about that. Like, I wanted to see him succeed. I thought he was really cool, and he had nothing but nice things to say about Seattle and Pete and Russ and all them. So I was like rooting for him. But thank God John Schneider did his homework, man, because he's he whiffed on Daryl Taylor, who we traded up to kind of replace him as a pass rusher. Has long-term leg issues now. We're not sure if we're going to see him till next year, second round pick, but he obviously knew what he was talking about for Clowney.
Yeah, and Clowney wouldn't even talk to Cleveland. So what the hell, man?
That's crazy. I don't know what he was asking for. Wasn't it like 18? Was it 18 million or something?
Yeah.
It started with
Titans gave
18.
him 13, and
Seattle offered 15, and then he didn't even take that. So I'm not even sure
That's
if he'll get 10 next
wild,
year.
man.
he goes to Tennessee for 13. Wow.
Yeah.
He took a gamble and it did not pay off.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part of taking a gamble and betting on yourself. It worked for Richard Sherman. He got a nice 3 years, and I think he's going to be a free agent. It wouldn't surprise me if he followed Robert Saleh out of San Francisco when he gets a head coaching gig. Anyways, number one storyline of 2020 is Patrick Mahomes securing the bag. 10 years, $500 million contract. Do I have that right?
Yeah,
503. Yeah.
$503 million. I mean, this was unprecedented, guys. I remember when this news first dropped, I was just like, it just seems like cartoon numbers, man. It's just like, where's his money coming from? But they have him for 10 years, 500 million, totally reset the market. And now you have to wonder if other quarterbacks are going to be asking for the same. I think Watson, I don't remember what Watson's contract is. I think it just dwarfed it though. Like
183 or something.
Yeah.
183 over 4.
So guys, I don't want to really talk about his money too much here. I mean, we all know it's a big contract, but we'll put it like this, guys. We talked about Kansas City's viability of being a dynasty going into this league, and we're all sticking to our guns. Zach's predicting 2 more. Ozzy's predicting 1 more. I'm predicting 3 more. For Patrick Mahomes himself, is he on pace of becoming the greatest quarterback who's ever played the game? Better than Tom, better than Joe Montana, better than Peyton Manning, better than Brett Favre, better than John Elway, better than Johnny Unitas, better than Matt Hasselbeck. No, I'm kidding. Is Patrick Mahomes on pace after his 10-year deal to becoming the greatest quarterback of all time? I want to go to Ozzy first because right now his favorite player, I think anyways, at the time being, if it's not Jared Stidham, is still Tom Brady. So Ozzy, what are your thoughts on Patty becoming the GOAT?
I mean, statistically, I don't think I could argue it, even if I wanted to. I think statistically, he probably would be on pace to becoming the GOAT. Now, then it comes down to the argument of the rings and all this stuff. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think that he'll only have 2 at the end of this, by the end of this contract. So I don't think that he would be the GOAT in that sense, but I think by and large, he would be the most talented and statistically probably the greatest quarterback of all time, just because of what he can do. And I mean, you guys watch him, you guys watch football. Anybody watching this or listening to this has seen this guy. He makes plays that nobody else has made ever. And it's just ridiculous. And so he's kind of setting the stage, and he's a great player for the NFL to market. And I mean, he's got it all. So yeah, I think that he'll definitely be on pace for that after this.
Let me phrase it, Ozzy, let me rephrase it like this, because you mentioned something interesting. If Patrick Mahomes shatters every record, and like not by like 100 touchdowns, like nothing's crazy, but if he breaks every record, individual quarterback record, but only finishes with the 1 ring he won in 2019, do you consider him the GOAT? Like, where, I guess it's finding that balance. If we could debate this on a whole episode, but I'll shift this to Zach. Where do you think as far as pacing goes? Because we know Peyton Manning for a time held a lot of the individual records, but not the rings. And so many pointed to Tom Brady before he broke the touchdown record as being the GOAT. And that obviously that bothered you. So where do you fall with Patrick Mahomes on this?
Personally, I don't put a ton of, I won't even go personally. Nobody gives a shit. We're gonna go how it looks. And if you want to look at it on paper, Patrick Mahomes is gonna need the stats. He's going to need the rings to be in that conversation and regarded by many as the GOAT at that point. It's gonna take a lot. Is he on pace? Of course he's on pace. Look what he's done. He's been to an AFC championship his first year starting. He won a Super Bowl his second year. He's the number 1 seed in his 3rd year right now. And is going to go to a divisional round right away here. And there's a good chance he'll hit the AFC Championship again and probably into the Super Bowl and win it again. Like they're the favorites. It's how it's looking. And at that point, if he wins a second Super Bowl already in his career, look at that resume. Like, look at how he would retire at that point. He's achieved the greatest, my personal greatest quarterback of all time, Peyton Manning. He has achieved pretty much the same amount, just not longevity of career in that small period of time. He's won, if he wins a Super Bowl, he's won 2 Super Bowls. He went to an AFC Championship. He secured an MVP. He potentially has another MVP coming up right now. I don't know how we look at this, and Tom Brady fans, like right now, because it's so early, and I'm not taking a shot at you, Austin, here, but I can see how they're kind of nudging it off and being like, yeah, just wait 5 years. Be scared, Tom Brady fans. You need to be. This guy is an all-time talent coming up. Look what he's done in the short term already. And, you know, with a guy like him there, I don't think Reed's going to retire anytime soon. That creativity is going to be there. That's scary, man. And it's exciting though, too. He's going to be awesome to market. We're going to watch the progression here. Now, can they keep it up? I hear you on that one, but man, what he showed, that guy looks scary.
Yeah, I got nothing else to add. I mean, it's really gonna be interesting to see how gracefully his game ages. But I mean, if you look at Aaron Rodgers at 37, still throwing off his back foot and just letting the flick of the wrist and the ball sail 60 yards. I mean, if Patty's doing that till 40, that's where we're in trouble. So those are our top 5 storylines of 2020, guys. The Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, Tom Brady signing with the Buccaneers, the CFL losing its season, blockbuster NFL trades with Adams and Hopkins, and Mahomes securing a 10-year deal worth $503 million. So if there's one you think we missed, shoot us a DM. We'll talk about it next week before we preview the playoffs. Guys, speaking of the playoffs, we got some Week 17 games to watch here because quite a few of them have playoff implications. I think we're pushing an hour, so let's take a look at these games here. We have the Cowboys going to the Giants. Now, how this one shakes out is the winner of this game will go to the playoffs if the Washington football team loses on Sunday Night Football. So let's go right into it. Zach, Cowboys, Giants, who are you taking in this one?
Guys, I have to go with the red penis. The red rocket.
I know it's funny. People are going to tune into this podcast and be like, oh, they've had some pretty good interviews. They seem pretty insightful. And I think we've said dog penis or red penis at least like 6 times in this episode. I'm like, what is with these guys?
What's going on here? You know what? This one is totally a feeling of these two teams are going in opposite directions here. The Giants have, since they lost Daniel Jones, is he back? Will he be playing in this one? I think Daniel Jones should be back.
He played in the last one.
Right. And I think like that's how memorable the Giants are to me right now. The Cowboys are being memorable right now. They're winning games and they're winning decisively. I don't even know what the hell's going on with the Giants since they lost to us. I just think it's a battle of two teams. One's getting hot at the better time than the other one. Cowboys are going to come in too much power, and the dog penis is going to pulverize the Giants.
All right. I'm with you, Zach. I'm going to show my bias. I'll be picking the Cowboys as well. I agree. Just the way these teams are trending, I can see the Cowboys taking this one. The Giants actually have an opportunity at a top 3 pick in the draft. If enough of these teams that are in the lottery position lose and they lose, they'll have the number 3 pick in the NFL draft, if you can believe that. So I am siding with the Cowboys here as well. Ozzy, who do you got? Cowboys, Giants.
That's wild, dude. How can you win
right?
your division but get the 3rd overall pick? Wow. I don't know what you would be cheering for as a fan, but anyways, I'm really hoping that the 3rd and wrong curse doesn't strike back, because I actually in the offseason, you guys probably remember me hyping up Andy Dalton. He was going to come in for an abysmal Dak. Unfortunately, he came in for an injured Dak.
Yeah.
So I did. But he hasn't looked great the whole time, but he's looking great now. And this is the Andy Dalton that I had envisioned. So I'm definitely taking the Cowboys here in a big spot. I was a little worried because the defense has been shoddy at times. However, with them playing the Eagles, the Eagles offense strikes more fear into me than the Giants right now. So the fact that they held the Eagles to 17 points and caused some errors, some mistakes from Jalen Hurts, who was looking like a god at one point, like just at his couple starts, he was just making all the right decisions. The fact that the Cowboys kept him kind of at bay and made him make some mistakes, I think that they can definitely do that with a hobbled Daniel Jones or Colt McCoy at quarterback. So Cowboys here, 31-20.
Ooh, okay. It's funny you mentioned that. We should have an honorable mention of the Dak and Wentz debate. Coming into this year, I was like very high on Wentz. I'm like, oh, look at how he carried them last year. And Dak, they might be better off with Andy Dalton. And then Dak just goes on to like set a record pace for like yards and carrying that team before he unfortunately broke his ankle. And then you have Wentz just absolutely crapping the bed this year. And now they're wondering if they're going to be able to offload that contract. Anyways, that's an episode for another day. Guys, I want to jump to Washington, Philly then while we're on the topic of the NFC East. So Dallas wins. They're feeling good, but they got to sit around and wait for Sunday Night Football. As of this recording, we don't know if Alex Smith is starting or not. So maybe we'll put a little asterisk beside this one. If Alex Smith starts, I absolutely believe the Washington football team will come out victorious. This is the team that beat the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. They've shown up in big games. Haskins was kind of holding them back, and now he's been released. That sucks, but I'm wishing him all the best. Now, if it's Taylor Hinkie, I think the Eagles will absolutely come in here and play spoiler. Hurts is looking great. I just worry about how he might handle himself with that Washington pass rush, but I'm favoring Washington right now. And fun fact, I was talking to Tristan. He's not even sure if he wants to root for his Eagles right now because he hates the Cowboys more than he hates the Washington football team and would rather them spoil the Cowboys' hopes by laying down on the railroad tracks. So if Alex Smith starts, I absolutely am taking the Washington football team to beat the Philadelphia Eagles and cement their spot as the division champions. Zach, who do you have taken this one?
This is an interesting one. I don't know if you guys have read up. I'm not 100% sure. Scary Terry was out last week. Is he projected to be back this week?
I haven't seen anything yet.
If Scary Terry's back and Alex Smith is back, just pretty much getting healthy, and Gibson is at 100%, I take Washington here. Just another add-on to what I was saying before. They were just, that defense actually is absolutely terrifying against a rookie quarterback. Jalen Hurts has looked good though. I've been quite impressed. Last game wasn't quite as nice as the previous ones, but he still threw for over 300 yards. He's getting that Eagles offense moving a bit more. And I think now we're all kind of questioning it now. Like he's brought a little bit of respect back to the Eagles in a way that we're like, oh, they could maybe do something here as Carson Wentz. If Carson Wentz was starting, we'd all be like, Washington's going to eat his ass. Like, right. Oh, that's not what I meant to say. Like beat him, eat him up. Like,
yeah.
You're going to beat his ass, not eat his ass.
Yeah, they're going to beat his ass. So I think that's where I'm going to end that. I'm going Washington here with a healthy squad. But Alex Smith is a big one. I've always really liked Alex Smith, and I hope he comes back healthy and has that, a little bit of the comeback player Cinderella story here and makes it to the playoffs. So
you guys are talking about whether the Washington football team will be healthy. I just need one Eagles corner that is not named Michael Jacquet who, for those who don't know, let up 7 receptions on 9 targets for 182 yards. So if that guy's not starting, then I'm taking the Eagles here. I think that I totally love this Washington team, but even with a healthy Alex Smith, I think that they caught the Steelers at a good time. I think that they kind of embarrassed the Cowboys. I don't know what the excuse could be there. Like it was just the Cowboys weren't what they are now. I think with the Jalen Hurts situation, his scramble ability, I think, will be really beneficial for this offense in this game. And I think that's going to be a nice little counterattack to the pass rush. So that plus I just don't trust the Washington offense at all, especially if Scary Terry's not in. But Alex Smith dumping the ball off 25 times a game to J.D. McKissick doesn't really strike much confidence in me. So I've got the Eagles here and the Cowboys making the playoffs as a result. Maybe a little bit of a bias pick. But.
Let's shift gears to the AFC. We have Pittsburgh, looks like they're gonna be resting starters, going up against the Cleveland Browns, who many will be like, haha, you lost to the Jets, but this is the same Jets team that went toe to toe with the Las Vegas Raiders and then beat the LA Rams. And then we're playing Cleveland, who were missing their entire receiving core because of COVID issues. So the Browns, on the other hand, though, have a lot to play for. And this is kind of the Mason Rudolph revenge game, so to speak. But I was watching NFL Network earlier, and they're saying, Cleveland still has to account for this Pittsburgh defense, which could end up playing very tough. But I feel a lot better about this for Cleveland if Mason Rudolph is starting. Regardless of how angry he is, he's just not a very great quarterback. So I have confidence that even if Cleveland has to win this game 13-10, they're going to do it, and they're going to secure their spot in the playoffs for the first time since 2002 or 3. I'm not sure which one that is. So Zach, we'll go to the Browns fan who's fresh with his Browns Christmas sweater. What do you think of this one, man? I have a strong feeling of which way you're leaning on this one.
And I was happy to hear about some of the starters sitting, especially Big Ben. I'm still stressing about this until we have that victory secured. I will be stressing. I need to see them in the playoffs, guys. I need it in my veins. I've been building this up for a while now, and I'm ready to explode. So when we look at this, last week we had our 4 top wide receivers out. We had our right guard Wyatt Teller out, and we also had our left tackle Jedrick Wills out. All huge reasons why we weren't producing on offense as much as we'd like to in the run game. Those are 2 of our best run blockers right there. Big burly guys who really get the run blocking done for us. A lot of those guys were gone because of COVID. Hopefully we're getting them back, even though I've been getting reports today. Sendeo was out with COVID. We had a few others go out. Off the top of my head, I can't think of it.
Carl Joseph, is that it? Or no? I don't know.
Yes.
Right, yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. He is. He also, so both our safeties. That's great. But that being said, we found a different way too. There's this tape that we put on Myles Garrett's helmet. He won't be. I guess it wasn't his helmet that he hit him with.
You got a Velcro strap Rudolph's helmet on him.
Holy
That's
crap!
Right. Yeah,
he's trying to rip it off, and he's just dragging it off.
I actually, a lot of people. It's funny how I've been reading a lot on Twitter about this, and everyone's talking about Mason Rudolph here and his revenge game and all that. But I think the better player out of the 2 overall is Myles Garrett. Obviously. Yeah. And I really believe that he's going to show everyone who the better player is. He's going to show the character we're looking for. He's up for Walter Payton Man of the Year award. He's done amazing things outside of it. I think he's really going to come focused and ready to play and put on a performance to show that he's put that behind him, more than Mason Rudolph's going to come in and just torch us and totally destroy all of our hopes. I'm leaning more towards Myles Garrett having a good game, showing off, that's behind him. And then I think Baker always plays better with a chip on his shoulder. And I think there's a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, 2 bags of Doritos on each shoulder right now because of last week. And I think it's hilarious that people are talking him down after the performance he put on prior to that, the 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. He goes in with depleted O-line and no wide receivers other than practice squad guys. And they're like, oh, it's old Baker. This is Baker Mayfield at his best. It's like, all right, guys. We got to talk it down a bit. The Browns are coming to play. And I think, and I'm so excited for when we get to the playoffs, because when we get to playoffs, we're going to be that team that nobody's going to want to play, because imagine losing to the Browns in playoffs.
Ooh.
Oh, I can't wait. And just to be real with you guys, I really do believe we're coming in with something to play for. We are thirsty. We are so thirsty. That clenching taste I'm going to get when it says playoffs, I'm going to scream. I can't believe it. We're so close.
Oh man,
we're so close, man.
Oh, no.
I'm rooting for you, because if it doesn't happen, I'm just gonna be so fucking sad. I don't know what this episode next week's gonna look like. if the Browns somehow miss the boat, man.
Oh.
Oh, Jesus.
Man,
Oh.
Zach's talking over here, or talking, and over here, I'm just like trying not to overthink this and pick the Steelers.
I'm picking the
Like,
Browns.
Man, I don't
Ozzy.
know. I like part of me, and I don't know if this is rational or not, but part of me just feels like the Browns might just have like all this excitement that Zach has too, and they'll be jittery, and Baker might throw like 2 pick sixes because he's so nervous,
Oh.
or just fumble it like another 3 times. And
Are you
just-
saying the Browns might brown this, Ozzy? You got to stick to your guns if you make that prediction.
I'm so worried that this is going to happen, but I am going to choose the Browns here. I'm going to not allow myself to overthink it, but that's just sitting. There's a corner of my brain that's just like, let's watch this one closely.
So let's put this in terms like maybe our listeners can visualize. So we put that post up of the Baker bus. Ozzy is that kid at the back of the bus who's kind of playing with the latch on the emergency exit. And Baker's the bus driver. He's like, hey, cut that shit out. You're not jumping off this bus. And Ozzy's like, I might jump off this fucking bus. And then me and Zach are at the front of the bus. We're good students. We're like, take us on the field trip to the Super Bowl. That's where we're going, on the Baker bus. But Ozzy's at the back. He's like,
Super Bowl.
I might jump
Holy
off.
shit.
Might jump off. Just to the playoffs anyways. We'll start.
It's funny that you did that analogy because I actually did do that. I did jump off of the back of a moving bus when I was younger. So it was actually perfect that you did that.
Wow. Well, didn't know Ozzy
So-
didn't take you for a criminal, Ozzy. So
So don't test me. I might jump off this Baker bus while it's in motion. But we'll save that for the game. I'll jump off mid game if I do that.
all right,
Just kidding.
staying in the AFC, we have Miami going to Buffalo. From what I've read, Buffalo plans on playing their starters, and this breaks my heart for Miami guys because I look at these other games. Like I expect Cleveland to beat Pittsburgh's backups. I expect Tennessee to beat Houston. I expect the Colts to beat Jacksonville, and the Colts right now are the only ones that don't control their destiny. They need one of the Ravens. They need one of the Ravens, Titans, Browns, Dolphins to lose in order to get in. All these other teams just have to win, and they've clinched their spot. But I look at Miami, and they have the toughest matchup out of any of these guys. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do it, guys. Buffalo just looks really strong. And I think they're still playing for the number 2 seed. I don't know if they've clinched that yet. And obviously, you don't get the bye with the number 2 seed anymore, but it's still something worth playing for because you might get that weaker matchup. If Buffalo's playing their starters, I think Buffalo wins, and Miami is unfortunately the odd man out. And though they have the brightest long-term future looking like it going forward, I think they missed the boat on the playoffs, guys, just because they have the toughest matchup here. And unless Nathan Peterman, I don't know who Buffalo's backup is. I know it's not Peterman anymore, but if it's Nathan Peterman-esque, I'm really struggling picking Miami in this situation. Ozzy, we'll go to our AFC East aficionado here.
Yeah, this one, I think the Bills are resting their starters because the Steelers they have the same record.
Oh,
And the Steelers have announced that they're resting starters, or at least Big Ben. So I think that the Bills, I don't know if they're necessarily going to risk it just for seeding it between the 2nd and 3rd seed. Either way, it's pretty good. So with that assumption, I'm going to confidently take the Dolphins because the Dolphins they're so well coached. I don't think that they come into this game and they squander the opportunity of securing their spot in playoffs. They have shown that they can go toe to toe with the best. And even with the Bills kind of clicking on all cylinders, this Dolphins team has shown that they can kind of slow down some teams, namely teams like the Chiefs. And I think that they could with the Bills. Not to say that they'd beat them, but I think they can slow them down. So with the assumption that the Bills will be resting some starters, I think that the Dolphins will take this. And I hate it. I hate it because that's one less team that the Colts can rely on to get into playoffs. The Colts are my Super Bowl contender, and they're on the outside looking in after last week's choke job. I'm just sick, but I think the Dolphins get in, and they're going to be a fun team to watch in the playoffs.
Zach, who do you have as the odd man out in this situation? Obviously, we're not going to really go too far into depth with Tennessee and Indianapolis's games. I fully expect those 2 teams to win both those matchups. I think it's really going to come down to this Miami-Buffalo game. And if that's the case, if Miami wins, poor Indianapolis and Phillip Rivers are on the outside looking in. And if Buffalo decides just to roll out the big guns, then obviously it's, another year of rebuilding before they can maybe look at a playoff run next year. So where do you have this one falling?
Well, you guys both said both sides. Pretty good here. One of you said if they're starting there, and I mean, that's a pretty easy way for me to go either way on that. Right now, Buffalo does have the upper hand, as Ozzy was saying, in the standings against the Steelers. I wish the Steelers were above there, because then there's a better chance that the number 2 seed would be playing the 7th seed, which the Browns should have going in. I got to play with the calculator a bit more here. However, yeah, exactly. So what is the verdict? Are the starters starting, or
Sean McDermott hasn't said yet? I just looked it up on Twitter. So our listeners will have to wait for our picks come Sunday at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, when we know what the hell's going on.
I was having a hell of a time picking this one, man.
What's going on?
Yeah, literally. Man, I was just talking to Tristan. I feel so bad for Scott Hansen. I think that's his name, at NFL Red Zone. That man's going to be sweating through his suit just trying to keep up with all these playoff implication games. Like, he's just going to be like, at the start of Red Zone, he's going to be like all neatly done up, his tie all done up. And then by like 5 o'clock, he's not going to have a tie on anymore. His suit jacket's going to be like wrapped around his head just to keep the sweat up there. And he's going to be like, we're going to go to the quadruple screen here just to keep track of all these games. And you know what? Just watch it for yourself. And then he just collapses from exhaustion. That's going to be Scott's life on Sunday, because goddamn, these games are just going to be swirling around. We haven't looked at the Rams and Cardinals yet, who are going to be playing with 2 backup quarterbacks. And then you have the Bears and Packers. I mean, we could sit here and play with the playoff machine for hours, and we won't have any better idea till Sunday. But anyways, Miami, Buffalo, Zach, you got to make a decision. That's what this podcast.
You're on the clock.
Jesus. You know what? Oh man.
You could just be bold and say, you could say, regardless of who Buffalo starts, Miami's winning. They have enough to prove.
Yeah, I know. I could.
Or you could do kind of what I did, and if the Bills are resting starters, Miami will surely win. And then,
or what if the Bills rest starters and the Bills still win? Like, what if it's just that kind of a game?
What if Miami sits their starters and does it for fun? And
they do it every game with their quarterback. They're always resting a starter at some point. So.
That's right. That's wild. I heard an analogy like for baseball with them, or whoever was saying that. I like that. They put their closer in at the end, and Fitzmagic with his head completely turned around behind him, like his head, like the Exorcist, throws a bomb down the sidelines. That's actually something I've been practicing for flag football this year. We call it the twist head. But no, I'm going to go Buffalo here. I feel if they're starting everyone, that team hits different. We've said that for something else.
The Baker bus hits different. And
I'm taking that back. Miami is that's right, because we can't say that. No, but I am going Buffalo here. If the starters are starting, that team is just a different animal right now. I need to respectively put my hands down and say, Alan, you've looked great this year, and I can't say anything bad about you right now. You've proven me wrong. So you're a beautiful thing. Just watch out for the Browns when you make playoffs.
So what happens if Bills rest starters? Are you still going Buffalo?
No, I think Miami will win, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I think we're all on the same page then. We just said it different ways.
Yeah, we eventually got there. I bet our listeners would be like, hurry the fuck up, you guys. Like, you're all.
They've got a Venn diagram of like all of our picks. They're like, okay, wait, what?
The playoff machine has crashed on our computers because we've just overused it. We fried the mainframe as a computer science student.
There's so many permutations.
Oh my God.
Guys, it's not on the list, but really quick. Are you trusting Chris Streveler in the Arizona Cardinals, or whoever the hell the Rams backup is?
On Wolford.
Wolford, yeah. I'm going Arizona. Am I though? I want to go Arizona. Okay, here's the thing. I'm going to be cheering for Arizona because of Streveler. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I think the Rams defense outweighs whatever way the backup's going to hold that team back. I think the Rams will probably end up winning that. And then I don't think Chicago wins, so it's not necessarily all lost for Arizona, because if Chicago loses to Green Bay, who still has something to play for, they're playing for the number 1 seed. I don't give Chicago much of a shot. You're going to see LA and Arizona make the playoffs. Do you guys see it differently, Ozzy?
I actually do see it differently. I'm going to put my faith all in on the Arizona Cardinals, because I've done that throughout the year to Zach's dismay. And I'm going to just go all in on the Cardinals here. Chris Streveler, call it blind optimism, but I'm going with it against this stout Rams defense.
All right.
Let's see what you got, big guy. I've seen that guy run over CFL.
Do the Rams make the playoffs, or do the Bears beat the Packers and send the Rams packing?
Do the what?
So if the Rams lose and the Bears win, the Rams are out. But if the Bears lose, then what do you have happening there?
Oh, sorry. Was that the question? And I just totally went off on a tangent.
No, I asked. So we're asking if the LA Rams are beating the Arizona Cardinals. You say no, Arizona's winning, but there's still one more seed to fill. Rams or Bears? Who's taking the final spot?
Well, who are the Bears playing again? The Packers?
Green Bay. Yeah.
Ooh. That's a tough one. I think that so if the Bears lose, then the Rams are in.
Yes.
I think the Rams will be in then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one has faith in the Bears. Zach, your father is a Bears fan. Do they have a shot in hell against the Packers? And if so, who's the odd man out against Arizona and LA?
Okay, crazy enough, guys. This is going to sound hilarious. Trubisky has been playing good football.
He has. I haven't wanted to say it,
right?
We stuck a fork in him, Zach, and we have to admit we were wrong.
I know. And, I do believe in them. I just think the road for them is tougher, because I am actually going to, I don't know who you said. Who'd you say for the Rams Cardinals, Steve?
I said the Rams are going to win, but I'm cheering for the Cardinals.
Oh, shit. Okay. I'm going Rams here. I think McVay's a better coach than Kingsbury. I think Kingsbury's a fine coach. Don't get me wrong, but I think McVay's on a total different level here. That's what it's going to come down to with the backup quarterbacks. I love Chris Streveler. I want him to succeed. I think that's so cool. He's coming from the CFL, and I will be cheering for him. However, I think the defense that is with the Rams there is just too good. That sucks that's the first career start you're going to play against Aaron Donald and Ramsey. It's just
Leonard Floyd.
terrifying. Yeah. And when we look at it, McVay's system is a quarterback friendly system. He creates mismatches for the wide receivers, lots of crossing routes to break them open. And I just feel like that's going to be more productive than this spread style offense that Kingsbury does with Kyler Murray, who is an elite level athlete. Not saying Chris Streveler is not. It's just he hasn't had the experience so far that we've seen Kyler Murray have. So I'm going to lean more towards the more, how do I say that? The more friendly system in McVay.
Right. Yeah.
Than I am with the Arizona Cardinals there, which then pushes the Bears out, right? If the Cardinals...
It depends. The Bears control their own destiny. If they win, they're in, I believe.
And then whoever loses
yeah.
Oh, I hope the Rams win, and then I hope the Bears win. That would be sick.
There you go.
And then
All
the
right.
Cardinals can lick my butt, Ozzy.
All right.
So to go back to circle back to eating ass.
Yeah.
I think that it comes full circle. So I have the Rams and Cardinals making the playoffs. Ozzy has the Rams and Cardinals making the playoffs, but with the Cardinals winning instead. Zach has the Rams and Bears making the playoffs. You love to see it. Guys, however this plays out, we're fired up to bring you our playoff preview show next week. We're going to have tons of hot takes for that. And we're going to kind of review some of the biggest disappointments of the regular season as far as players and teams go next week. So that's going to be exciting. So definitely stay tuned for that for our first episode of the new year. For those that tuned in at any point during 2020, thank you. I did the math this morning. We've put out 50 episodes from the start of 2020. That includes 12 interviews with some really great, insightful former athletes, coaches, agents, scouts, at every level. So we can't thank those people enough who came on the podcast and took the time out of their evenings to come join us and share their philosophies and everything. So that was really great. Thank you to all those who came on. And thank you to listeners who have added takes, listened to at any point, or watched us on YouTube. 50 episodes is a lot of episodes. So even if you tuned into like 5, we're quite thankful for that. And we appreciate your support. So from all of us at Third and Wrong and the amateur agents as a whole, hope you had a good Christmas and a happy new year. You can find me on Twitter at SteveBullen22. You can find me on Instagram at SteveBullen_, and be sure to follow all the agency accounts across social media. One more time for 2020, Ozzy, where can the fine folks find you?
Fine folks, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at AustinPaul_. That's Austin with a Y, not an I. Let's go.
There we go, not an I. Zachary, where can people find you doing what you do best?
Hey, you guys can find me on Instagram at ZachFoth_ and on Twitter at ZachFoth.
All right, be well, be safe, happy new year. Don't go out and party, okay? Be responsible, and we'll get CFL football this summer. So we'll catch you all in the new year after a crazy week 17. Cheers and Godspeed. And Godspeed 2020. Fuck, thank God that's over. Oh, God.
Oh, man.